4 notorious villains with a plan to destroy the Nicktoons universe will face off against a heroic foursome united in defending it. Nicktoons Unite! Saving the Nicktoons universe one world at a time.
That was just a bunch of cheap walk cycles!
As technology has advanced over the years, the video games we play have gotten bigger, stories are more climactic, and worlds are more expansive than ever, really making you feel like you're the character and a part of the world you play in. But with this causes games to become more expensive and time consuming to produce, which has led to a devastating side effect, and we've lost a huge part of gaming because of it. I'm of course talking about crappy license games.
I'm going to die!
If a series or movie came out that was at least somewhat successful, a third-party developer was there to scoop up the rights, slap together a shoddy subpar game, and rake in the profits from using a recognisable brand. I don't care what anybody says, I love licensed games to death. Lego Star Wars, amazing. Simpsons Hit and Run, masterpiece. Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, instant classic. And then we have the kings of handing out their properties to game developers, Nickelodeon. During the 90s, Nickelodeon had the Nicktoons. Basically, it was just all their cartoons at the time. You know, Rugrats, Rocko's Modern Life, Ren and Stimpy, etc. With most of their shows being huge hits, we got plenty of games starring their characters. Now, the majority of these games were pretty bad, but I'd like to focus on what they decided to do during the 2000s. Crossover games.
Timmy Turner?
What is this? A crossover episode?
Spongebob Squarepants, Timmy Turner, Danny Phantom, Jimmy Neutron, the gang's all here, teaming up to kick some butt. Do you get it? I said butt instead of butt. Now all of these characters had popular shows running at the time, and they all had their fair share of games, but seeing them get together to take on a greater force is still such a cool concept to me. We never see anything like that today. I mean, what's the closest we've got? Cartoon Network Battle Crashers? Okay, yeah, sure. This epic saga got mostly mixed reviews, but undoubtedly did well in terms of sales for us to still be getting these games to this day, with the most recent installment being Nicktoons Racing. But today I'd like to focus on the main four, being Unite, Battle for Volcano Island, Attack of the Toybots, and Globs of Doom. To start this long-lasting string of crossover games, we got Nicktoons Unite for the PlayStation 2, Nintendo GameCube, Game Boy Advance, and DS. This started up the Nicktoons series. Well, in America at least. Over here in the UK, it was known as SpongeBob and Friends. Not really hiding our bias there, are we, Nickelodeon? Released in 2005, Nicktoons Unite marked the first time we'd see our favourite characters join forces to stop a threat in video game form. And like I said, it certainly wasn't the last. The game must have been pretty good then, right?
Wrong!
Developed by Bluetongue and published by THQ, both well known for mostly producing licensed games, this adventure sees four villains from the Nicktoons universe coming together to form an evil syndicate and plot to take over their respective worlds. This syndicate consists of Plankton from Spongebob Squarepants, Vlad from Danny Phantom, Crocker from Fairly OddParents, and Professor Calamitous from Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius. Seeing this unfold, Jimmy uses his technology to create an interdimensional portal and gathers together the heroes of each of these worlds, obviously being Spongebob, Danny, and Timmy. Once united, they all head off to each of their worlds to confront the villains and stop their doomsday plan. This story is simple, but it's perfect for what they needed to do. It was the best method of getting all these characters together, and not only do we get to see the heroes team up, but also the villains. It's great. What's also pretty stellar is the voice acting and dialogue. The best part of a crossover like this is seeing a ton of your favourite characters get the chance to interact with one another, and it's done wonderfully here. One example being at the end of the Ghost Prison level, where Spongebob realises the whole time that they were fighting ghosts and freaks the hell out, clearly not realising that Danny is also a ghost.
If this is a ghost zone, then those things before, they must have been...
Toast.
It can be hard to take all these characters, who in their own shows are the leads, and have them all take the spotlight but still work off each other well. And they succeeded this by giving each character their own role to play within the team. Jimmy is the genius leader, Danny is the good-hearted tough guy, Timmy is the young kid eager to get into the action, and SpongeBob is the goofball comic relief. Their unique personalities makes them work off each other really well. It almost seems like these characters were made to meet each other. But Mark, why are you saying nothing but positives? I thought you said the game was bad. Yeah, I'm getting to that, straw man. Because built around this neat story and great characters is an actual game, and not a very good one. This game works a lot like Sonic Heroes in the sense that you're controlling multiple characters at once, that you can switch through to utilise each of their unique abilities. Only difference is Sonic Heroes is good. Yeah, I said it. It takes you to 4 different levels from the TV shows. That doesn't sound like a lot, but you'll be singing a different tune when you find out that every level is like an hour long. Just doing the same monotonous puzzles and platforming for an hour straight. So exciting. The characters all control around the same. You can run, or at least jog, use an attack, ground pound, and jump. The variety comes in with the character's specific abilities. Danny can go ghost and possess enemies, Jimmy can shoot out flares, Timmy can freeze things, and SpongeBob can summon frickin' Doodlebob. You know, stuff like that. Each hero has a few special powers, and they're used to figure out basic puzzles within the levels. It can be kinda fun at times, but then you find yourself repeating these same few puzzles over and over again until your mind becomes completely numb to it. I feel like this game would be a lot more interesting if the marathon-like stages were instead separated into smaller levels, each of which focused on a specific character ability. You can upgrade your powers through different Goddards, scattered throughout the levels, but they don't really make much of a difference. This is also the only way you get to save your game, so if you're getting bored and want to turn off the game, you'd better hope you find a Goddard soon, or you'll be playing the game for another while until you get to one. Other than special powers, each character also has a melee or range attack, with SpongeBob and Danny using their hands, and Timmy and Jimmy using guns. Cartoon guns, that is.
Don't make me pull this trigger. Cut a blast.
Although it does create an interesting concept in my head. These attacks help you agonizingly slog through enemy fodder, which the game has you doing constantly. And I mean, constantly. What's the challenge here? Not falling asleep? What a shitload of fuck. Oh yeah, it comes from trying to get the AI away from enemies in time because for some reason characters can lose health and die even when you're not playing as them. You shouldn't find yourself dying too often though, so lives are a complete non-issue. The only part that even comes close to being challenging are the boss fights, which are honestly the best part of the game. They're nothing spectacular and they can go on for a little too long at times, but they require you to use your abilities to open up their weak points so you can attack. They're kinda fun. You know what's not fun though? This music. Hands down the worst aspect of this game though was the presentation. Let's start with the graphics. For being cartoons that all have distinct and unique art styles, well, Butch Hartman's shows withstanding, these locations are so incredibly dull and blend together despite all these cartoons looking so different. Amity Park, dull and blocky. Dimsteel, hope you like bronze. Bikini Bottom, a little better, but it gets very repetitive as it mostly takes place in Jellyfish Fields and Plankton's lab, but it's nowhere near as vibrant and colourful as the show, or even other SpongeBob games. And finally, Retroville. Since his world is already the main hub, Jamie's level involves the characters shrinking down and going inside Goddard to destroy a flea bot that Columbus is using to spy on them with. It's just a generic factory level and... Oh hi Goddard! What are you doing here? Inside Goddard. Even beyond the locations, the way these characters look and move is just so boring. They have 4 or 5 stock animations that they each cycle through in every single scene. This also causes the lip syncing to not match up at all, so to get around this they use these text boxes instead with 2D artwork of the characters and... I don't like the way 2D Jimmy looks at me. At least they've got their priorities straight. I mean, who needs animation? Clearly not me. I'm sure they put their priorities somewhere. In the sound design maybe?
Patrick, watch out for that jellyfish harvester!
How was this at all acceptable? Not only is the level music this really smooth jazz that you can barely hear, but in the cutscenes it just doesn't play any music at all, making their lack of sound effects really damn noticeable. And the ones that do play... This may as well be a silent film. I'm so genuinely baffled at the fact that they thought it was okay to release the game like this. I really shouldn't be shocked though. Apparently a ton of content was cut from the game, like this title screen, and code that implies characters like Sheen and Vicky were going to appear in some form. Although apparently they did have some time to insert costumes for each of the characters. You can unlock these from having other Nickelodeon games in your memory card. Did you know about this? It was almost impossible to find any images of it online. I wish I could say the positives outweigh the negatives, but no, not really. If you like the few good things I mentioned, like the writing and character interactions, well too bad, because there's only a handful of scenes in the entire game. Whatever, I spent enough time ranting about this game, you can probably tell my thoughts on it. Overall, while it had a few interesting concepts such as the power-ups, a cool story, and occasional fun interaction, it's all brought down through the abysmal presentation and boring repetitive gameplay. I'm kinda sad the story was wasted on a game like this. It would have made for a much better movie, akin to something like the Jimmy Timmy Power Hours. Speaking of which, something interesting about this game is that they reference the events of the Jimmy Timmy specials at multiple points, meaning this game is canon. SpongeBob has canonically met Jimmy Neutron, and I think that's pretty amazing. And this continuity was pushed into the next game, 2006's Nicktoons Battle for Volcano Island. This was one of the first games I ever got for my PS2 and I adored it. I would replay it over and over again until one day I lost it. And when I asked my dad, he said he'd traded it back to the game shop without telling me. So the next day we went and bought it again. This game upped the production with a greater amount of locations, characters and bosses, all built around a plot featuring this wise old crab summoning the 9 chosen ones to stop the Magu, this giant purple guy who just escaped from prison. He breaks the summoning circle which scatters the 9 heroes across the island, but conveniently Spongebob and Danny land right in front of the crab. They're then tasked with gathering the heroes together and stopping the Magu from using his ooze to take over the world. These heroes are Spongebob, Patrick, Sandy, Squidward, Danny, Sam, Tucker, Timmy, and Jimmy. And once they're all rescued, they save the residents of the island and put a stop to the Magu. It's a bit more out there and doesn't really have anything to do with the cartoons, but I appreciate them trying to do something new. Each of these games could have easily just been,
Oh no! Calamitous has teamed up with the villains again! Got a blast!
My only real issue with the story is the characters that were chosen. Like, did we really need 4 SpongeBob and 3 Danny Phantom characters? And despite having 9, only 6 of the chosen ones are playable, with Tucker being their science guy, Squidward just disappearing until the final boss, and Jimmy isn't even there in person. When they find Timmy, he uses a communicator to call Jimmy, so he can help them find out what the Magu is up to, and tell him how to get off the island. But Tucker was already the science guy, why was Jimmy needed? Or better yet, remove Tucker because we don't need another Danny Phantom character and bring back Jimmy to be playable. Why didn't Jimmy get sent anywhere? I don't know, screw him I guess. It's so strange that they decided that the arguable leader of the team from the last game shouldn't even be there in person. There's concept art showing Jimmy with the gang, so I'm guessing he was cut from the game and was demoted to an exposition machine. I don't know why I'm so mad about this, I've never even seen his show. Let's just move on to the actual game before I have a heart attack over Jimmy fucking Neutron. The gameplay is about the same as Nicktoons Unite, albeit much more polished. You can still switch between the available characters to traverse through each of the 10 levels, although now you don't have to worry about the other characters dying while you're not playing as them. You can now double jump, making platforming much easier, and they've removed the character specific abilities, and in place there's now a ranged attack for every character. For example, Spongebob shoots out a bubble, Timmy uses Cosmo Wanda to shoot a star, and so on. You can fill up your attack meter with these yellow items, and increase your health with the blue ones. While getting rid of the character abilities has made it much more of a straightforward platformer, I don't find the ranged attacks a suitable trade-off, as they barely do any damage to the enemies, and it removes the uniqueness of the heroes, with them all now basically being the exact same, so it mostly comes down to preference for who you play as. When the game lets you, that is. See, because there are only 10 stages with 6 characters, not all of them are playable for an equal amount of time. Hope you didn't like Timmy Turner because you can only play as him for a grand total of 1 stage. I don't get why they didn't just let you play as any character you wanted to, or at least after you beat the game give you the option to. Because of the large amount of characters, it also lessens the amount of time they have to interact with one another, since more time needs to be devoted to each of them. It's a shame because the writing was my favourite thing about Unite, and this game has some neat interactions, but it's nowhere near as good. One thing I do like, however, is that the game likes to fixate on Spongebob and Danny being the main characters. They're the first characters you play as, you can only play as them in the hub world, they take on the final boss together. It could have been easy for them to use Timmy instead of Danny, considering the Fairly Odd Parents was Nick's second most popular show at the time. But I'm glad they didn't do that. Spongebob and Danny work off each other really well. The first level features the two of them exploring their new surroundings and talking with one another, and it works really well. But that's really where my main issue with the game comes in, and that's the pacing. The events and conflicts go by way too quickly. You just walk up to the crab for some info and he's like, oh, go here. Okay, now go over here. Alright, now go. Oh, wait, the game's over.
That was a bit anticlimactic.
They try to give off the vibe of the Nicktoons being stranded on an island, with them doing things like setting up camps in the hub, but they rush through it all way too fast, there's almost no room to breathe. It's kind of a blessing in disguise though. Unite had you doing the same things ad nauseum, so you got bored really quickly, but even though the gameplay is extremely similar to Unite, the levels are so much shorter that they usually end before you get the chance to be bored. Something this game does have plenty of though is fan service. When all the heroes fell from the sky, belongings from their world fell with them, so in each level you can come across and collect different salvage items for the characters, which are all referenced to the shows like Timmy's To Rulebook, SpongeBob's Spatula, etc. There are also references to other Nick shows, like Invader Zim's spaceship and house being in the background of some levels. It even calls back to the events of the previous game, like with Plankton's crab robot being among the wreckage in the first stage. Once you've collected all of a character's salvage items, it unlocks new levels, or bonus features you can access through the hub. Tucker's lets us rewatch cutscenes, Squidward's lets us look at concept art, and the 6 playable characters get extra time trial stages to play. It's a good reward for exploring the levels. You can also unlock bonus costumes, but instead of having to buy a completely different game to get them, you just have to find enough of a specific item in a level. This game has quite a bit of extra content, although it doesn't stop the game from only being around 2 to 3 hours long. It definitely could have been longer, but you know, budgets and stuff. Maybe they decided to put their budget into other things, like presentation. Please? I don't want to witness 2D Jimmy again. Well, I can thankfully say that the graphics in this are... alright. It's nothing amazing, but each stage looks cool and atmospheric. The character models are decent, and we thankfully have fully voiced and animated cutscenes. The sound design has also seen a major boost in quality. Gone are the days of...
Go!
and... now we have a bit more fitting sound effects. The music is also alright. There's some catchy tunes in here, especially the main theme, but it's nothing really to write home about. Speaking of things not worth writing home about, there are a handful of bosses in the game, 2 of which just come out of nowhere. You just go up to the crab and he's like, oh yeah, there's this other villain I never told you about, go kill him. Something I can appreciate is how they all try to stand out from one another. The first has you take on this sand monster using these slingshots to destroy his shell, then the next just consists of you punching this guy for 10 seconds before he drops, then the next is against this plant king and you have to destroy his vines to get up to his face, and finally there's the final boss fight. The boss takes place over the course of an entire stage, of this floating junk pile, where he pops up in the background to taunt and throw enemies at you. Then when you finally get to him, it's so underwhelming, you just have to shoot him continuously with your weapon. After this, the Magu gets sucked into a portal and Volcano Island is saved. It's probably just nostalgia talking, but I still think this game is okay despite its issues. Sure, it's really short and it's nothing more than a generic platformer, but it's still got a great atmosphere and fun gameplay. So if you're a fan of these shows, then I'd say check it out. You can do a lot worse than this game. A whole lot worse. The game concludes with Jimmy sending Nicktoons back to their worlds, until they inevitably have to meet again. And meet again they did, in the 2007 game Nicktoons Attack of the Toybots. The game that focuses on our heroes getting lost in a toy factory. Yep, they sure weren't running out of ideas by this point. Professor Calamitous, this time not joined by other villains, is trying to win the biggest genius award, and so to prove his brilliance is using furries, Krabby Patties, and ghost energy to power his new evil Toybots. He has also kidnapped all the Nicktoons from their worlds, and cloned them into evil robots. They soon meet one of Calamitous' workers, Chadbot. He informs him of the professor's evil plan, and strikes a deal with Jimmy, being that he will help them with their mission if they help him grow his collection of heroes' master models. With the help of Chadbot, the Nicktoons rescue all the stolen heroes and put a stop to his evil scheme. It's your run-of-the-mill platformer story, go to A to put a stop to B while rescuing C, but like Unite, I think this game's story is mostly enhanced by the writing. There's a lot of fun moments in here, like when they first meet up with Jimmy or Tak pretending to use his powers to open a door so he can impress Spongebob and Patrick. Oh yeah, that's right, Tak was a thing. With Nick airing its brand new show Tak and the Power of Juju, I guess they thought it would help with promotion to have him team up alongside the other Nicktoons. He even took over Timmy's place in the box art. But other than him, the other playable characters are the same from the other games. SpongeBob, Patrick, Danny, Sam, Timmy and Jimmy. Sandy has been removed, but I doubt anyone was that upset about it. Less SpongeBob characters is a good thing in my opinion, he already gets his name in the title. However, there are some optional unlockable characters you can play as, such as XJ9, Stimpy, Gurr and Rocco. None of them have any story relevance, but it's neat to see some of their older and more forgotten shows get some time to shine. You unlock them the same way you get the master models, by finding character-specific tubes in a level, completing their challenge, then getting sent to this Invader Zim-inspired room to rescue them. Although it's clear who the developer's preference for these, as SpongeBob, Danny and Tak each get unique gameplay styles for these sections with a cool little intro animation, but the other characters just get a short platforming puzzle that's no different from the rest of the gameplay. And how is that gameplay? Is it as boring as Unite, or is less boring as Volcano Island? It's somewhere in the middle, I'd say. This game's shtick is trapping you in a small area, making you do some precise platforming to get to the end, then sending you to the next small area. Rinse and repeat for 20 minutes until the level's done. The platforming can be fun, it's pretty challenging at times. That mostly comes from the cheapness, with most obstacles being a one-hit kill, and when you die it usually sends you all the way back to the beginning. Combat is a much smaller focus in this game, with it being basically unchanged from Volcano Island, except each character now uses the same ranged attack instead of the unique ones from the last game. I find these a lot more effective though, as you can use more than 5 shots at a time. It's useful for plowing through the rows of generic toy-themed robots the game throws at you. They keep building up these really cool robot designs, it's even on the box art, but they only end up being in 2 stages where you're riding a mech, so you don't even get the opportunity to properly fight them. Oh, that's right, the Mech Stages. So Jimmy has the genius idea of using mechs to destroy the robots. So we get 2 entire levels where you just walk around and shoot out green slime. On the PS2 version, you have to point the right analog stick in the direction you want to shoot, but there's no reason for you not to just keep shooting endlessly because you have infinite ammo. These stages are probably the worst part of the game. Well, you did say you only had to do it for 2 levels. At least you don't have to do it for that long. And I'd be saying the same thing, Strawman. Except there are only 7 levels in this game. You go through Bikini Bottom, 2 factory stages, Amity Park, another factory stage, Fairy World, and then the Professor's Lair, each of which lasts around 20 minutes, making this the shortest Nicktoon game yet. The game ends before it feels like it even had the chance to begin, and I wouldn't mind as much if they didn't try to artificially extend the length by making you unable to progress to certain levels without collecting enough master models, meaning you have to backtrack to replay levels you already went through. It is good, however, that they let you go to whatever section of the level you want, and tell you what hero you'll need for the master model. It's also good that they finally let you choose whatever character pairing you want for a level, but I guess it was kind of necessary in a game where there are almost twice as many characters as there are levels. The graphics are about on par with Volcano Island. Not bad, but nothing too amazing. For mostly taking place within a factory, they do a good job at making them stand out from one another, with each section having a unique aesthetic, like race cars, more girlish toys, space toys. It's interesting stuff. The soundtrack for this game is also surprisingly great. With Unite and Volcano Island, I can remember one, maybe two songs, but I can remember almost all of this soundtrack. The Toy Factory levels have a nice electro swing vibe. Looks like Nick was doing it before it was cool. And this game has my favourite Bikini Bottom theme, topping even the one from the beloved Battle for Bikini Bottom. The guy who did the OST for this game went on to do the soundtrack for Doom 2016 and Wolfenstein games, so he's got quite the resume. I wanna love this game, I really do. It excels at fan service, with the master models each being a character from a previous Nick show, like the hit Back to the Barnyard. And all the dialogue that the characters exchange are really fun, but this game is just so shallow that it's barely worth talking about. There aren't even any boss fights. They could have easily let you face off in some epic battles against your Toybot doppelgangers. But no, there's not even a final fight. Look at this! This is the last part you play before the credits roll, and it's just the same as the rest of the crappy mech levels. After this, the Nicktoons face off against Calamitous, only to realise they're on the set of the Biggest Genius Award ceremony, where it's revealed that Chadbot won because he has the most master models. The end. What was the point in any of this? Yes, I'm getting angry over a children's game. What of it? I'm doing a lot of complaining, but it's only because I can see glimpses of a great game here. I find the moments where you're platforming through the Toy Factory fun and challenging, but it's constantly being brought down by the shoehorned in mech levels, dickish design, and only clocking in at around 2 hours of total gameplay. I'm so disappointed because this is my favourite of the 4 when I was a kid. But maybe it'll pick up in quality for the epic finale, 2008's Spongebob Squarepants featuring Nicktoons, Globs of Doom. Aw, they're not friends anymore. Oh no, what happened? You could tell at this point they were getting really desperate for seals. Look at how little focus they put in the Nicktoons in the title. I don't know if I should be worried about this. The game opens with SpongeBob during a regular Bikini Bottom day, when an evil force comes in and takes over. SpongeBob is then greeted by Jimmy Neutron, who tells him what's been happening and uses a portal to take him to... Haven't I seen this somewhere before? Apparently this orange goop has been falling from the sky, and is turning anyone who touches it into a mindless drone. Once at the Magu lair, Jimmy equips the team with weapons that will help them take on the Morphoids, and find out what's been going on. This new team consists of SpongeBob, Jimmy, Danny, Tack, Invader Zim, Plankton, Dib, Technus, Beautiful Gorgeous, Tralloc... Who?
Who are you people?
So basically, for every hero, they also have a villain from their world to team up with. I don't really know why, they don't do a good job at explaining it, but it causes this roster to be really underwhelming. This forced rule of needing a villain means they had to get rid of characters like Timmy, because they didn't want you running around as an old man, I guess. So no Timmy, Nick's second most popular show, yet Tack is still here. Still pushing for that show to do well, are we? They have a couple cutscenes of them talking to each other and making references to the shows, but it doesn't have much of an impact because who the hell cares about the villain from Tack? How about this Jimmy Neutron woman I didn't even know existed until this game? I feel like this roster would be a lot more interesting if they just kept it to the main 4 heroes and villains from Unite. It would be neat to see them all have to team up together. But the choices for Globs of Doom are so bizarre. The only good addition are Zim and Dib, who are really great in this game. The fan service is also neat. I like how the main hub takes place within the volcano from Battle for Volcano Island, and the wise little crab is back to give us tutorials, although he has a different voice this time. As for the gameplay, it's kind of a mix between all 3 games that came before. You've got the wide open worlds of Unite, the simple platforming of Volcano Island, and the 2 playable characters of Toybots. You'd think that would make for the best game yet. One of the best additions for this game is actually something I talked about with Unite. Instead of chucking you into one giant hour-long level for each world, they're actually split up into 2 smaller levels you can access from the hub. This makes the game a lot more casual to play, since you can just enter a level, play for 20 minutes, then you're done. It's just too bad that these levels are so goddamn boring. Something I can give the other games is that they at least have variety between each level. But with this, you're just doing the same thing over and over again. Each character plays almost exactly the same, with the only difference being whatever weapon they were given at the start, which you can use by filling up your special meter. They all do the same thing though, stabilize the enemy for a bit so you can go attack them. And on top of the repetitive combat where you do nothing but fight the same minion looking enemies, there's really simple platforming segments that put up no challenge at all. There are 5 worlds in this game, with them all being locations from the characters' worlds. There's Bikini Bottom, Amity Park, Poo Poo Nunu, Retroville, and Sims Town. Just Sims Town. You kinda wrote yourself into a corner there, didn't you? The locations are probably the best part of the game. It's really fun to explore places like the Bikini Bottom Theatre, the Retroville theme park from the Jimmy Neutron movie, and Downey School. I just wish what they built around these cool locations were interesting. Like Unite, the best part of this game is probably the boss fights. They each have you take on a different character from the shows, while they're infected by the goo. There's Bubble Bass, Zur, the Girl Eating Plant, and Ghost Dog. No Tack Boss though for some reason. They all require you to do something different in order to defeat them. They're all really creative and fun to play. I just wish I could say that about the rest of the game. Even beyond that, it could be really glitchy at times. There were at least 2 moments where for no reason at all my characters wouldn't turn, and were constantly sliding around the place. And damn Dib, they were right about you having a big head. The presentation is actually a big step up from the previous games. The models are a lot higher quality, although for some characters like Jimmy I wish they weren't. And Dib's eyes... I don't think they're supposed to look like that. And the stages are all really bright and colourful. Though if you were to play this game for whatever reason, I'd say go with the Wii version, as the lighting is kind of bad in the PS2. I don't want you looking at me like that, Tack. The music is also alright. Not as good as Toybots, but still, not bad. The game ends with the reveal that the goop was coming from Globulus Maximus, this giant piece of orange slime who was born when the universe sneezed. After defeating him in a really easy, boring boss fight, we find out that this giant destructive entity who almost killed all of us is just a bit lonely. What is this, a Steven Universe villain? Stop! So the heroes encourage him to spend out the rest of his days as SpongeGlob. Because even giant world-destroying beings love SpongeBob, earning weekdays on Nickelodeon. Please watch. They try to have the villains turn one over on the heroes, which leads to another really easy, boring boss, where you control SpongeGlob as he beats up the villain ship. And then the game just kinda ends after that. Like, it literally just puts the end on screen. This game kinda sucks. It's a disappointing end to the series. The other games weren't anything great, but I was at least able to have some fun with them. It offers you nothing unless you really want to explore the locations from these shows. This game ended up doing so poorly that the developers had to shut down after its release, which is a shame since I doubt we're going to get anything like this ever again. A lot of people say something like this couldn't work again because most of the shows from them have been long cancelled, but that never stopped them before. Danny Phantom, Jimmy Neutron, Invader Zim, all these shows were cancelled way before some of these games came out. The truth is, these characters are still well known and beloved by millions of people, and more games featuring them alongside SpongeBob would do nothing but increase public interest in them again. That's how it worked for me. I only started watching shows like Danny Phantom because of these games. And let's face it, what shows could Nick even use for another Nicktoons Unite? SpongeBob teaming up with Lincoln Loud and a Ninja Turtle. It's just not the same. I may be incredibly nostalgic for these 4 games, but I'm not going to sit here and try to act like they're anything more than what they are. Crappy license games. But that's kind of what I like about them. But who knows? You know, we still got Cartoon Network Battle Crashers over here. Maybe that game could be there to fill the void. You know, I think I now have a newfound appreciation for Globs of Doom.